Welcome to another quick tutorial on cyber threats. Today I want to have a quick look at the letter S because S is for supply chain and business associations. Most organizations rely on the services of other businesses. Perhaps they manufacture your goods or supply you with critical stock. Perhaps they manage and maintain your IT systems or handle your customer transactions. You might rely on different businesses to provide you with cleaning services or just to take care of your marketing strategy. The point is that, metaphorically speaking, no business is an island, and every business depends upon the various links and associations that will help them bring a product or service to a customer. So, what's your point? What's all this talk of suppliers and vendors? Well, in the fall of 2013, the US store Target was breached and credit card and personal information was stolen. Attribution led to a Ukrainian group of hackers, and in particular, an individual known as Profile 958 or Rascator. Rascator used open source intelligence, or probably a search engine, to find out information about Target's network and its associated vendors. This information highlighted that Target got its air conditioning systems and services from a company called Phasio, which had direct access to Target's network. In September, Rascator sent a phishing email loaded with malware to Phasio, and someone somewhere must have opened it, granting the Ukrainian group of hackers access to their system. Soon after, Rascator was able to traverse from the vendor's network to Target's network. In all, the group is thought to have stolen 40 million credit and debit card numbers and 70 million records of personal information. There are reports that the Target data breach cost nearly $300 million, which is absolutely staggering. My point, therefore, is that you're only as strong as your weakest link, and business leaders must assess the security risks of their supply chain and put effective controls in place. Suppliers can pose such a risk to your organization if they have physical access to your site or can log into your network. So, what can we do with our existing suppliers? You should list all the companies with access to your business environment, your network, or your data. What systems have they got access to? What data should and shouldn't they see? Now you have your list, what sorts of things can go wrong? You should attempt to prioritize these risks into high, medium, or low categories. Then, starting with your highest priorities, you should select security controls to minimize these risks. Should there be two-factor authentication? Should we encrypt all communication? Should we use network segregation? You can also draw up procedures or must and must not do rules to add gravitas to these controls. For example, there could be rules about passwords, rules about site access, rules about using your data, and of course, the consequences of non-compliance. In a very real sense, whatever security responsibilities and conditions you impose upon your own staff, you should also impose upon your suppliers. You can also request copies of your vendor's security policies, processes, and procedures for your inspection. How effective do they appear to be? Failing that, you could ask for evidence of third-party audits. I'm thinking ISO 27001, SOC 2 Type 2 reports, or PCI DSS certification. There are many different types of certifications which will probably give you the assurance you need with just a little bit of research. Finally, you should try to carry out a site inspection where you interview personnel and observe the operating habits of your vendor. That being said, you may find that you just can't dictate the terms of the relationship in this manner, and a documentation review or site inspection is only good if you have access to them, you have someone qualified to conduct the audit, and you can react to anything that you find. If this is the case, then you need to find the differences between your controls and theirs. What could be done to address the most important discrepancies? Ideally, it's a good idea to do all these things before business commences between you and your supplier. I certainly wouldn't want any third party accessing my data without some form of assurance that it will be handled appropriately. However, when your business arrangement does kick off, you must check that the vendor continues to conform to your security requirements. Hopefully, that means that all the relevant reports, records, and audit logs are readily available to be reviewed by your specialist. This process is much easier if you have carefully defined who is responsible for what security controls. It is also important that your supplier lets you know when they suffer a security incident so you can assess what actions you might need to take and get some assurance that your supplier is handling the matter effectively. Either way, who in your organization will review these alerts and have the authority and resources to initiate your own response plans should you need to? Finally, if the services you are provided with change, then you need to reassess the risks and modify any existing contract or agreement you have. Hopefully, if you have well-defined procedures for dealing with change, this won't be a problem. Lastly, your supplier must inspect their own supply chain and replicate all the things you have done. Have they performed a risk assessment of their vendors, for example? Have they identified appropriate security controls and implemented them? Did they attempt to assess the effectiveness of these controls on an ongoing basis?